This is great, Dana, and it's fantastic to hear these stories, of
Yeah.
folks that are out there engaged, and at the heart of at the center of that is the heart of gratitude, and I think that's really where it starts because my book is focused on that employee, that individual
Hmm.
who's out there trying to navigate their career, trying to navigate, how do I be well in this way of working, and it's really nice and uplifting to hear those stories that there's other folks out there that are engaged and that they've set the conditions for that. But yeah, it's interesting when the pandemic was full on. I think the majority of folks were treating remote work like some experiment. And I
Yeah.
mean, it felt like everything was an experiment. Like, is
Hmm.
this going to work? Is this not going to work? And then it kept going on. It just kept going on and on and on. And then I think, at least from my experience and what I've seen across other sectors and in some of the research I've done, look, this is just going to be a way to do things. And, the companies that embrace that, the organizations that embrace that, um, I think they came out, probably in the same place they would have had everybody been in the office and there hadn't been a pandemic, or they came out further ahead because they were a little bit
Hmm.
leaner financially. They were able to invest in opportunities for their teams to connect and not just sit in an office together. So they were able to take that money and do retreats. They were able to take that money and do other kind of things to invest in their employee engagement and well-being. Um, and so now we're at this very interesting juncture at the time of this episode where you're seeing still that push and pull between, okay, the pandemic's over. This was all just a fever dream. Come back to the office. But now you have people like what you're describing, and folks like myself who have literally built their lives around this new model, and the software has caught up to that. The ability to do this in a more kind of fluid way is here, and it's allowed our work to kind of ebb and flow with the responsibilities of our lives, and it's allowed folks who have embraced the remote work opportunity to have not only added flexibility, but just to have, I guess, a bit of peace and longevity as they embrace it over the long haul versus just kind of going at it month to month. So
The attention span of somebody in the US today is 8 seconds. Now, that doesn't mean you've lost them, but it means that we are so overstimulated that we have a really hard time being present and we have a really hard time staying focused.
Yeah.
And so we have to deal with that when you're speaking to anybody, when you're trying to communicate with them. You really have to think carefully, what am I saying? And how am I saying it in a way that's going to sink in, be understood, be heard?
Mhm.
And so that's where clarity has to be right front and center. And to have clarity, there's three parts of the equation. One is, who are you talking to? Because I could
Mhm.
say things that you will understand, maybe because, let's just say, I'm having a conversation with you about, like, as a woman, right?
Mhm.
Um, or as a leader. But I might have conversations with somebody who's much younger, like a Gen Zer, who's just beginning their rise up in their career. I'm
Mhm.
not going to talk, I might have the same absolute message, but I'm not going to talk to them the same way. I might
Mhm.
use different words, I might use different stories, etc. So you have to think about, who am I talking to first? Because that's the
Mhm.
first step in resonating. And then,
Mm.
yeah, and then the second part is what is the key that I want them to walk away from this conversation with. So we always have to have that key message, because if you don't, then it becomes convoluted. And so if you're having a meeting, or if you're giving a speech, or if you're giving a presentation, or you're having a maybe a conversation that's that is tough, or crucial, you have to know before you start the conversation what you want the message to be.
Mhm.
So that's the second part. And then the third part that enters into it is how you're saying it. Because if you're not clear with the way you use your voice and your body language and your eye contact and your posture and all of that, then it's still not going to resonate, even if you've got the words pretty down clearly. But if you're still not using all of that innate part of us, the body language part, they're never going to hear it. So it's just, so there's these three key parts that all have to work. They have to play in the same sandbox in order for your communication to work.
I have this whole list of ways that people can build their personal brand online to make it look like they are an expert, even if you are just entry level, fresh out of college. There are ways to look like you're an expert. So one of the ways is you need to have a very professional headshot. I go on LinkedIn, even if we have VPs, directors, managers, CEOs, I see them on LinkedIn. They don't always have a professional headshot. They're using something they took on their iPhone, or they think that if a professional photographer took it at a wedding, it must be a professional photo. What? No. Please. Up level your career by searching on Google headshot photographer near me and look for someone who has the kind of vibe you're going for based on their portfolio. And then not just that, you have to walk in to that studio with your best foot forward because you want to look amazing in your headshot. 80% of the work to looking amazing in your headshot actually comes from the homework you do before you walk in. So here's the secret. You need to get a professional haircut at a salon booked the same day, right before you take the photo. Because then your hair looks amazing. If you're a woman, get a blowout, right?
Yeah.
Something that I did was, you see, this is my second book. It's not like a Wall Street Journal bestseller or New York Times bestselling author kind of thing. It's an Amazon bestseller, but I'm still able to call myself a bestseller based on this. I walked into my hair salon and I said, I'm looking to position myself as like a famous celebrity author. I said, make me look like I'm someone famous walking through New York City, Yeah, I said, that's the kind of look I'm going for so that when I'm trying to get in the media, getting on podcasts like this one, people are like clamoring to get me on their show because I look the part, right? So that's exactly what she said. She just like was like, okay, I'm gonna make you look great, right?
Oh, that's awesome. So what are some of your recommendations that you would have for leaders just listening and learning empathetic listening, even if they don't have empathy in their top 10 or, it's like, okay, I need to listen and pay attention right now.
Well, and that listening in and of itself, right? I mean, we could do a whole podcast on listening, but
yes,
it is I'm going to listen and be present. So if someone's telling me something hard and I'm thinking about my grocery list, that's going to be, they're going to pick up on that, right? On that detachment. And so I'm going to listen and not fix. So I'm just going to listen and take in this information and then maybe ask what they might find helpful. Again, you don't have to be the therapist in this role. That's not, that wouldn't be healthy or helpful, but to try to understand what they are saying from their perspective, and then to think together about what a next step could be.
We heard from Gallup that 1 in 2 people are considering leaving their job right now. So not only these college kids are looking for a role, but there's people in roles right now that are saying, I'm not happy. What would you say to that person that's in a career that's not happy, that's trying to figure out what they should be doing right now?
I think it all starts within yourself. You cannot do any kind of career job related task without knowing what you want and who you are. It has to start within. And so I would always ask clients, if they're discontent, what do you not like about your job? List all the things and figure out what is most important for you to change and how easy to change it. Sometimes there are things that are really hard to change and really easy to change. Let's say it's the job schedule, right? Like, is this a seasonal thing or is your job always nonstop? Is this an unsustainable pace? And is it always going to be that way? And if it's just during these, few months of the year, find some way of refilling your bucket however you can. But if it's been going for years, you're burnt out. You need to figure out what it is that you want to change before you go out and do the work.
We heard from Gallup that 1 in 2 people are considering leaving their job right now. So not only these college kids are looking for a role, but there's people in roles right now that are saying, I'm not happy. What would you say to that person that's in a career that's not happy, that's trying to figure out what they should be doing right now?
I think it all starts within yourself. You cannot do any kind of career job related task without knowing what you want and who you are. It has to start within. And so I would always ask clients if they're discontent, what do you not like about your job? List all the things and figure out what is most important for you to change and how easy to change it. Sometimes there are things that are really hard to change and really easy to change. Let's say it's the job schedule, right? Like, is this a seasonal thing or is your job always nonstop? Is this an unsustainable pace? And is it always going to be that way? And if it's just during these, few months of the year, find some way of refilling your bucket however you can. But if it's been going for years, you're burnt out. You need to figure out what it is that you want to change before you go out and do the work.